I'm Susan Campbell, and I am a faculty fellow in the Center for Community Engagement from the School of Education. And Michael Cohen and I are going to present the Deepening Reflection and Learning Workshop about service learning. So I'm going to start off and let's see. Going to show you the maybe, I don't know who's controlling the screen, but maybe make it so.
Susan, you could take over the screen share.
Okay. There we go. Yes. Oh,
I'll stop. Maybe I need to stop mine. We'll get it.
You'd think after a year of this, we'd all be experts, but I think I find I learn something every time I do it. I kind of suspect that my students aren't really hearing me, even though I say, "Can you hear me?" And they all give me thumbs up or nod their heads or something like that. And then later I'll be in a meeting and people will go, "We can't hear you, other faculty, your mic's not working or something." So, but the students are very, very agreeable. Lots of thumbs up. Anyway. So here we go. I'm sharing this. It's my screen now. Yes. Let's see.
Not yet.
Okay.
And now you're muted.
Now I'm muted. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. So, can everybody see a screen that says, "What is service learning?" Yes. So I want to introduce you to the Canvas page that we have that's set up about service learning. And I'm thinking that everybody who signed up for the workshops this semester has access to the Canvas pages. Yes? We'll see. But anyway, I'm going to show it to you. And most of what I'm going to talk about is on the website. So if you go into Sonoma State and you just search for the Center for Community Engagement, and you put it, when that comes up, you search for service learning, you will get a huge amount of resources about service learning. And I'm going to show you some of that today and then walk you through, just show you a couple of things in particular about reflection that are there. And then Mike's going to talk with us about some research studies that have about reflection and service learning. And then if we have time after that, we're going to get into small breakout groups for just a few minutes and share on a Padlet any like ideas that you have for reflection in your service learning courses, either ideas to do it that you haven't done before, or something you've done before, maybe you heard about, or in either face-to-face or online. And so this is what the Center for Community Engagement, what is service learning, starts out as. And I'm just going to click on this to go to the website. Are you still with me, or do I have to stop sharing?
Still with you. You can see us.
Yeah, okay. What is service learning? This is great. Read about it. I read this, maybe at least once a year just to remind myself. This is very nice. Right over here on the side here, I'm going to click on reflection. So do you see reflection? Still with me? Okay.
Yep.
So this is a process. It says central to effective service learning is a process called reflection, also called processing, critical analysis, and reflective critical analysis. So we're going to, this is a good spot to get started, Then I'm going to go into critical analysis and then show you some tools for critical analysis, because using that phrase, we are talking about reflection in service learning. And one of the things that's very important for reflecting, having your students to reflect throughout your service learning project, at the beginning, during, at the end, whatever method you use for reflection, is very important, because they need to process this service learning. So just as a reminder, service learning is a combination of community service and academics. So your students are out in the field, working with community partners on some sort of project, service learning project. But what changes this from community service into service learning is that you, as the faculty, are also incorporating the community involvement into your academics in the classroom. So you have your classroom at the university where they're learning things, but you also have the community classroom out in the community where they're also learning things. And so this comes together to be service learning pedagogy. So, and this becomes a very powerful method for teaching anything. It's very authentic, because they're learning about academics in your class, but it becomes very authentic, real world learning, because they are also applying that and learning from the community at whatever involvement they're doing. So this gives you just a quick, it can take, maybe some of you have had reflection methods in your courses that use guided journaling or related research and writing projects, role-playing plays, presentations, art, creative writing, and multimedia projects, group discussions. I recommend that you do a combination of things that actually allow students to collaborate with others so that they can hear other people's experience, but also opportunities for them to just internally, individually reflect. So opportunities for them to share with a small group or the larger group, however you feel is right for your course, but also opportunities for them to just have like a one-to-one with you, private reflection, just in case. This also helps you as the instructor, the pre-reflection, like before they go out into the field, so to speak, so that you can adjust your teaching, because sometimes students have apprehensions, particular ones, for what they're going to do. And so by bringing these to light for you, you're able to adjust what you're doing in the course. For instance, I think one of the examples on the website, there's a couple of really good videos, where there were a group of students who were going to, I believe it was Central America, to build houses over spring break. And the discussion, they had covered a tremendous amount about the community that they were going to, Central America, all these different things about travel and what they'd find there. But in pre-reflection, what the instructor found out was that the students were very worried about using power tools. And so that would be something, something you just assume could happen, and without the reflection, you would miss that whole anxiety place that your students are having. And so having reflection helps the students process what they're doing, what they're going to do, what they've just done, but it also helps you as the instructor to stay in tune with what your students are doing and what they need from you in order to have the service learning be successful. So I'm going to pop over here to this critical analysis. And does everybody see a page that says critical analysis? Okay, yes?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So here we have critical analysis, also called reflection, processing, and other terms. But so this gives you a good overview of it. Then here's some tools for critical analysis. So, maybe you are, and this is a great video right here that some people at St. Mary's made. This is the different methods for reflection. And I'm not going to show it. It's about 13 minutes long. It's great. And but this gives you a really great, whoops, it's playing by itself anyway. Okay, hold on there. One of the things that they talk about in the video, one of the methods is what, so what, now what. And so we have that right here on the website. So everybody see what, so what, now what? Yes.
Yep.
So this is a method, and these different methods that they have on here in the video and that are on the website are great for giving you a framework. Actually, they're reflection methods, but they're also great for giving you a framework for what you're doing in your course with the service learning. So what, so what, now what is a process for students to reflect. And so it's what simply asks, what happened, what did you do, what did you expect, and what was different? And this could be a pre-reflection and also used as like, what do you think is going to happen? And then it gives some ideas here on how to do this part of it. So you can ask them to look at the website of the community partner, define important terms, ask the community partner to come to class and bring a client. And so then this next part really is a great reflection section. So what? Why does that matter? And so this is really good to help students really internalize and get a little deeper, a little critical analysis in why they are doing this. Why does this matter? Why is this a problem? And who am I in this whole thing? So why does this matter to you, to the partner, to society as a whole? So that question right there can be a great launching off point for all kinds of things that you do, that you bring into the classroom, and great discussions that you have in the classroom. So beyond even reflecting. So in our experiment, in alignment, informed by, in conflict with other class texts. So that's an interesting part too, in conflict with other class texts. Because we know one of the challenges in teaching in a university is there's a set of knowledge very often that is discussed in the university, in classrooms. And yet when students go out into the real world for their careers or whatever, there might be some dissonance. There might be some difference between what they've learned in the classroom and what they've learned, what they see in real life. So this is a great reflection part, the so what part, and also a way where this would be a good assessment to kind of wrap up your unit on whatever you're teaching, is to have them compare, what they've learned in the classroom and what they've seen in their service experience in the community. Maybe one built on the other. Maybe they were very, ideally, it all speaks to each other and supports each other. And then this last part, now what? So what will you do different? And what have you learned? And will you continue to serve or commit to political engagement? So this is great because it's not just service learning, hopefully, is not you just go out there and engage with your community and do something and then that's it. Wow, that was great. I engage with my community. Next class, hopefully the students become engaged, or this can even be for you, like as the instructor, now what? How will you build on this? How will you change the course? How will you bring things more in line with what you've learned? But this can be something that the individual students, sometimes these things can really change their outlook on what they're going to do for maybe their careers or what they want to do going forward, maybe some organizations that they'd want to get involved with. But I think this now what question is an excellent question for thinking about university to career and what kind of what kind of grown-up or college graduate do you want to be, and how will you become involved with your community? So that I find this is an example of one of the methods that you'll see in that video, but I find that this one in particular is really nice, and it gives a nice framework for your course doing the service learning, as bringing both of the service learning, the community engagement, and the academics together for the service learning. And so this gives you a little idea here also on how to assess this. different parts of it. And, you know, I stress also that when you're doing some sort of reflection, you don't just need to think about now they're going to write something down in a journal or something, you know, that's great too. But, you know, an art project, some kind of, you know, do you know, I've had students do all kinds of things. You know, they've had sculptures or like some kind of relief mural, but all kinds of things. They also sometimes people can express themselves better if they're doing something that's not the written word. So you have to keep in mind that with reflection, you're trying to tap into students' genuine feelings about something. And that can be very hard sometimes. So sometimes I like to give them you know, leave it wide open for them to use any kind of medium that they would like. You know, maybe they want to make a little film or something, or you know, an art piece, or maybe they want to write a paragraph about it. So I like to leave at some point, sometimes the reflection open a bit to what the students want. One of the, they touch on this in the video, but one that I have found, I use this a lot in different ways, just as a method for teaching. But it is where it gets students standing up and walking around. You take like big pieces of paper, like those big white pieces of paper that are on those big pads. I can never remember what they're called, giant white pads of paper. But and in the middle of it, you put maybe you could put like a photograph, you could put a quote, you could put a you know, a piece of artwork, and then you put these up around the room, and silently the students go around and they reflect. Maybe you've given a big question, like you'll have these all over the room, like a gallery walk, and students go around to each one and write comments on it, like do reflection like that. They don't sign their name or anything, it's anonymous. And everybody has to be silent as they do it, and they keep moving around. When I teach this method to my students who are student teachers, I give them more information about limiting the number of students who can congregate at any particular spot, because it can get out of hand with K-12. But I think you're okay with university. When I've used this with my university students, they're fine. But anyway, so I am going to turn this over to Mike now, and let's see. Stop sharing. There we go.
Okay. Thank you, Suzanne. I'll take over. All right. Good to have you here. Get this started. Okay, Suzanne went over this. Yeah, and one thing I want to point out, so my name is Michael Cohen, Department of Biology, and you know, science courses that have a community engagement aspect to them naturally lend themselves to reflection. I mean, it's sort of done already, it's built in when a student is doing a project, and in this case, it would be something, an applied science project, right? You're applying some aspect of science to the community. You're keeping a lab notebook or field notebook, and the reflection can be built into the notes that people are taking as something that they do at the end of the day to see how they progressed, or to write how they progressed through the goals of the project. And then, of course, at the very end, the terminal report in scientific format. You have as you all know, the intro, the materials and methods, results, and discussion section. And there's a good opportunity for them to reflect on the whole term. And again, one thing I'm going to emphasize that the studies that I'll go over kind of point to is the importance of guided reflection, and not just letting people just say, reflect on what you've done. It really needs some input from the instructors, taking the students through it. All right. One thing to point out, we do have this, as you guys know by now, that's Tips and Trends Service Learning page in Canvas. And there's different links. If you click on modules, we have a module on reflection activities and best practices. Have the previous version of the talk that Susan and I did last year, but also since then we've added a relatively recent critical reflection October 30, 2020 webinar given by an expert, Dr. Tania Mitchell. I believe she was from Minnesota, and that's available. The passcode is here. You could just click on that and get access to that. I'll show you a little bit of an excerpt from her talk. This is actually from her talk. There she is up there. And John Dewey, one of the first users of this term, reflection and learning. And we do not learn from experience. We learn from reflecting on experience. Now, this term reflection, one of the difficulties in actually studying the impact of reflection on learning or community engagement projects, service learning, is getting a solid definition of reflection and a consistent usage of it so that you can compare it between studies and different projects. Here's some from 2010 from a book on service learning. You've probably read it already. Reflection, for example, is seen as a key component of service learning, yet any definition of its duration, scope, placement, mode, and structure remain frustratingly absent. And then thinking that maybe in the past 11 years that's been figured out, well, here's a new publication. This one is focused more on the instructor's understanding of service learning, or of reflection in service learning. And again, it's 2021 and it's still all over the place, and which makes it difficult, as I said, to compare between studies. And so this is acknowledged within the field. And one thing to point out, so I really, if I could summarize, and I think the web page does a good job that Susan took you through, but of course there's the reflection on your personal growth. And this is the one that Dr. Mitchell pointed out in this quote right here, and I think you can see it, but this kind of reflection, and this may be what people kind of intuitively think of with reflection, sort of like, looking in the mirror and seeing how I've improved. But it really has much broader meaning than that, and maybe even more importantly, is how does the community engagement project fit with your academic goals for the course? How did it reinforce or enhance the academic learning? And then, of course, how did you should be reflecting on how it actually helped the community, not just your own personal growth. But how did it serve the community partner, and what ways could that be improved? And so the studies, I'll show you the two. I'll kind of touch on these other aspects of it, and to give a more complete picture of what the impact of reflection is. Here's one from 2010, assessing learning and service learning courses through critical reflection. And this one covered two different types of courses. One, a lower division class for first semester freshmen, another upper division seminar course, challenges, potential practices, community organizing. So these are really just case studies, as I said, not meta-analysis here. And the way reflection was assessed is students created reflective rank, how to articulate learning to express and explore their individual learning in the context of academic enhancement, personal development, and civic engagement. And then these were evaluated by raters and given a score that you'll see. again, I think with this study in these classes, maybe a deficit is that the reflection wasn't necessarily guided throughout the semester, but we'll have a look at the data here. I just threw in some of their introductory material to give you a feeling of the background that these authors have and their emphasis they're giving to it. But a lot of it just is versions of what Suzanne and I've already said. So looking at the actual data, you can see the 4 different levels of kind of depth of learning that they assess here, and the 3 different aspects of learning: academic enhancement, civic engagement, and personal growth. And so we'll just deal with these one by academic enhancement prompts guide students toward examining course material through their service experience in the community. And it kind of self-evident in the title there. Okay, well, with these courses, how much depth of learning did they achieve? Well, it's kind of modest, isn't it? On a scale of 4, the average is 1.64. And this one, civic engagement, you can see several. I mean, what's skewing this course, like showed no depth of learning at all. This was like over 1/3 of the class. Personal growth, that one, you know, a little bit, maybe it's a little bit easier to, in a way, BS yourself, BS about like how you improved as a person. But again, they try to keep it so it's just not like venting and emotional, but you know, they put here, explore what service experience reveal about their personal characteristics, strength and weaknesses, sense of identity, assumptions, beliefs, convictions, as well as other traits. Okay. Now, overall critical thinking scores on final reflections for those 3 different aspects. Again, the critical thinking in this study, not outstanding. How about that? For all these categories in that particular study. Now, one place where there's kind of significant differences when they compared the freshmen and the upperclassmen with respect to the critical thinking in regard to civic engagement. And not surprisingly, probably for those of you who worked with both groups of students, the upperclassmen showed a better sense of civic engagement than did the freshmen in both the depth of learning and critical thinking. You can see that in the T-score here. All right. And this is their summary of, although students were able to slightly improve their critical thinking skills over the course of the semester, they were less able to improve their depth of learning. Finally, the sole indicator of difference between freshmen and upperclassmen in depth of learning and critical thinking was in civic engagement. So, you know, I think if in some sense you could see that without getting too much into how they did their actual reflection, you know, there was room for improvement. Here, this is another study, again, breaking down reflection into different categories here. And this group is a higher level now. We're talking about graduate level course, international service learning course. They worked with a community partner in a Latin American country and assessed, you know, again, these different aspects. They had different, they ran this course multiple times, so they were able to test these different things, guided versus free reflection. I'll explain this: dialogic versus expressive, and public versus private, whether it's on an open blog or not. Again, some introductory material, and just to emphasize this point that Suzanne pointed out, reflection is not automatic for students, especially for effective reflection. It needs to be guided. That their research is going to show that. And so their analysis, they broke down the levels of reflection into these 3 different aspects: descriptive, writing delineated students' activities, and you can see the examples there. Analytical, the student assessed effects of the activity on the project itself, which could produce benefits for the community partner or the student created artifact. And finally, in an integrative paragraph, student assessed the impact of the project activities on issues larger than the individual project, such as the student's education or future career or even global issues. So in a way, they're kind of mixing student benefit with community benefit within these 3 categories. So again, even the way reflection is assessed, I think you can see in these 2 different studies, it's already very different. And how would you compare them? All right, now guided versus free, and so what you see, here are the 3 different aspects that we're talking about, that we're looking at their student abilities in these different things, and the impact having a guided reflection or just free form learning. Now, with the free form, they were, maybe not surprisingly, more descriptive, just talking about what they did. I got up in the morning, whatever. Analytical, now this shouldn't surprise you either. Hopefully the instructor is going to guide the students to actually think critically and analyze what you're doing, not just kind of let it slide by as might otherwise be. The integrative, that you didn't see much impact. And again, those that just fell into completely off topic and couldn't be analyzed to any of these 3, not surprising when they're guided, a lot less people are off topic. Okay, now this requires a little bit more clarification, dialogic versus expressive. This has to do more with feedback. Dialogic models, student reflections are shared and commented on by others. Got a comment here. I'll pause. Okay, thank you. The instructor, perhaps other students or community partners throughout the service learning experience. In the expressive model, students are required to complete reflection, but their writing does not receive feedback until the end of the semester. Okay, well, let's have a look at how that pans out. Well, again, not surprisingly, you're going to be more expressive maybe when you're not getting feedback, you're just kind of emoting. But again, getting feedback from the instructor as you go along, primarily it's going to be guiding you to be more analytical. There didn't see much impact on an integrative. And again, not surprisingly, less off topic when you're getting feedback consistently. All right. All right, now the last one for this is the public versus private, where the students with the public type of reflection are posting on like a blog, discussion board, something like that. And the author, really posed 2 different hypotheses. One is, it couldn't cause students to be more careful in their analysis, or alternatively, it could cause them to be more reserved for fear of attracting criticism. And those of you who have taught for a while would probably predict fear. And that's what the data shows out, is that when the analysis is up there for everybody to see, it's actually they put less up for fear of being criticized. So that was the strongest impact, just having a public blog or whatever. Maybe not the best for addressing this important aspect of reflection and getting it done. So that kind of concludes those studies. And I said I cannot give you any kind of meta-analysis on that. And Susan, do you have anything else to add before? I know did we show the actual website in Canvas? Just make sure. Let me go to that. I'll share my screen so you can see that part.
And the participants have Meredith, they have access to the website? I mean, the link to the Canvas?
I believe that actually most of the participants here are not even Sonoma State folks.
Oh, okay.
So maybe a little introduction would be good, but I can say some things about reflection that might be helpful if you want me to.
Yes.
Oh, Meredith, yes, since you're with us.
So,
please.
So Mike hinted at this. Reflection in service learning is absolutely at the heart of service learning, and it's where the learning happens. It's, as he said, it's not the experience itself, it's the processing. Dwight Giles, who's the author of Where's the Learning in Service Learning, says the learning is in the hyphen. So that's the reflection process. That's where the learning is happening. Tania Mitchell, who Mike also introduced us to, is very well known for her work around service learning and working with underrepresented populations. And one of the things that she talks about in great detail is how important it is to not normalize the white experience, that all of our students aren't white, that actually in some of our guests, I think the majority aren't at your campuses. And so a lot of times the reflection materials are written by faculty, totally not intentionally, in a way that isolates further our underrepresented students. And so it's important to be really careful about the kinds of language that you're using, because it's not always the case that our students have the same experiences as each other. Students of color have said things like the real learning I did in this class was helping other students understand things, or I felt like I was going home when I was working in the community, things like that. So we need to be careful of that. Older studies have shown that, particularly when you have your students working with diverse populations, the reflection that you use, the quantity and the quality, is the absolute key, because students, particularly white middle-class students, can have their negative stereotypes about communities confirmed through being in the community. And the processing is how you make sure not just that they learn, but that they learn what you actually wanted them to learn. And so as you're assessing the reflection, you're not just assessing what did they learn, but did they learn what you wanted them to learn? Service learning can be quite dangerous and harmful. And the teaching part, this is the teaching part, is helping the students process. And I think a lot of times we get hung up on the logistics, because the logistics, there's a lot of logistics, and how are the students going to go where they're going to go, and how are you going to make sure everybody's safe and all of that. But at the heart of all of this is learning, and that is what the reflection is for. And it really does matter. One of the studies that Mike didn't share shows that more reflection is actually better, which is interesting. So more students learn more when there's more reflection. And this material, everything I'm saying, by the way, is in that reflection section of the website that Susan shared, and that I also put the link to in the chat. So you don't have to remember it, it's all there. But if you do want access to the Canvas page, please, you can put it right in the chat. Missy's here and she'll help.
And I just want to stress too, that website, the CCE website, because there's so many things in there. And what I just saw this last time I looked at it in preparation for this workshop was that if you want someone from the CCE at Meredith, or someone from the CCE, or to come out and talk, or not come out now, we're still zoom in to your class, then they're available for that. And from what Meredith was just talking about, another topic that was brought up was this idea for your students to understand that they're partners with the community partner, the importance of the word partner, in that they're not going out as let me help you kind of attitude. So it's important also for you to, as an instructor, to, check in through reflection very often and talk about how you're working with that. They're an educator as well. The community partner is an educator as well as the instructor in the classroom, as well as the students with each other. And that it's not that we're going to go out to this group and do this service for them. They're giving something to us, and we're working in partnership. Let's see. So we have about 15 minutes left. I'm thinking of having us be in for like a 5-minute breakout room to share methods or questions about reflection. But if, or you could do, let's see. I'm not sure who's sharing their screen now. Does anybody?
Nobody.
Okay, nobody. Okay. Actually, I think Ashley put this in the.
Susan, are you looking for the Padlet?
Yeah, I think it's in the chat.
It is in the chat.
Okay.
So if there's a link to the Padlet in the chat.
Right.
So
yeah.
Anybody, it's right above Damien's comment. So it's one up.
Okay, so great. That's good. So why don't we take 5 minutes, and I'm just going to arbitrarily put you into I don't seem to have breakout rooms. I'm not sure if somebody else is controlling that.
I can set up breakout rooms. Do you want me
wait a minute. Here we go. I see. I'm going to put 3 people, and we're just going to do this for about 5 minutes for a share in, yeah, somebody else maybe do the breakout rooms. About 3 people, because I'm not sure how many total people are here, actually. One,
I've lost that ability.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so I'll do. Okay.
Can you split us in half? You and Mike are separated.
Okay. If we're in the same one, I'll leave and go to another one. How about that? So I'm going to create 3 breakout rooms for about 5 minutes, and then click on that Padlet, at least one person, to post if you have something to share or a question, and then we'll just come back together in about 5 minutes. Did anybody have an opportunity to put things on the Padlet? Okay, so from our discussions, would anybody like to share anything that they talked about in their breakout room? New ideas or questions about today's workshop?
I think if you refresh your page, there were other things on there.
Right. I always forget to do that.
I do too. That's why.
Right. When I use it in class, I'm like, how come nobody's done this yet? Come on. Okay, so it didn't do anything for me. I'm having a little trouble. There we go. Well, maybe somebody else would share theirs. I'm having trouble with internet. Or would somebody just verbally like to share something?
I can chat for a minute.
Okay.
share.
You just have to unmute yourself and yell out because I only see four pictures here.
Okay, I'll shout out. So our group was, we were a CCE heavy group, but Meredith had posted, Meredith, I'm sorry to be speaking for you here, but Meredith had posted this reflection method about reflecting on service learning. And so we had a really interesting conversation about what do we even want to reflect on? And this idea of what Meredith called meta reflection, I think is a really interesting concept. And I shared that in all the time that I've taught service learning, I always ask students who has taken a service learning class before, and I always have students who have. And then I ask them, what is service learning? And I have never had a student be able to answer that, even having taken them before. So I love that idea of that meta reflection on what is it that we're really doing here? And why are we doing it? And is it worthwhile?
That's amazing. Yeah. That's yeah. Is it fair to require students to do community-based work? What if they don't believe in the cause or the issue? So that's a really good question to pose. And that could maybe even check in a pre-reflection. And if maybe no one has an interest in it, and maybe if there's time, if there is time, have the students generate, have a choice and have them be able to generate where maybe to have the service learning with what community partner. So, and Melissa, I sat in on one. I have students do 5 reflections, 1 pre-service, 2 in the middle, and 2 toward the end. They have prompts to choose from for each time, which I was very impressed with that. I like the idea of 5 of them. And Melissa, what are these undergraduates?
Yeah, I have their upper division usually in their like last year, or some very rarely in their 3rd year. So they're usually pretty well in their psychology career, and it's a special topics course that they choose as an elective. So they're usually very invested. I advertise it as service learning, so there are no surprises. They know that that's what they're signing up for. And we do some readings at the beginning, Missy, kind of building on what you were talking about making sure that they really understand what service learning is. So we have a couple articles, I think probably some of the same ones on your website that they read about service learning. And then they kind of choose their partners. So we usually have a handful of partners that we're working with, and students can kind of rank which ones they'd like to be placed in. And I usually find that students are always, we've got at least a handful for each group. So it usually works out really well. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds good. Well, we're about at 2 o'clock. Would anybody else like to share anything, or you have any questions? That Padlet just stays there. And so if you have any questions, or something comes to you and you'd like to share it, a method for reflection, go ahead and post it there, and we can check back with it from time to time. Mike, did you want to say anything, or Meredith, in closing?
Thank you, everybody, for joining us and for sharing and learning together. This is an incredibly difficult time to be pretending like everything's normal and doing things like a workshop. So I really do appreciate everybody's involvement. Thank you for coming. Thanks, Susan and Mike, for your wisdom and leadership.
Well, thank you, everybody, and hang in there. It's almost the end of the year. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.